Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit of the WoW podcast, Blue Please, on CynicalBrit.com, and I have a quick plea to Blizzard. Please don't shoot the messenger. So, there are times when Blizzard has looked very unkindly on people that find their way into zones which are, let's just say, not readily accessible. So in this case, I managed to find my way into Uldum. Now, the purpose of this video, of course, is to show you a work in progress, and I want to preface all of this by saying that's exactly what Uldum is right now. It is an unfinished zone. However, it is by far one of the most impressive things I've ever seen within WoW, and I think you guys really deserve to have a look at it, because this is going to get you very hyped for Cataclysm. There's no doubt about that. This made me excited because of the architecture and the possibilities for story in here, and I love stuff related to the Titans. I'm not much of a lore freak, but when it comes to Titan stuff, I'm big into it. The kind of interesting Ancient One technology. It's good stuff. May I also preface this by saying that the music in the background is not the music of the zone. It does not have zone music as of yet. I've put in appropriate music that I have permission to use just for the sake of the ambience. Don't ask me why there are a couple of red mushrooms lying around here. Again, this is most likely the result of an unfinished zone. There are just random objects and placeholders all over the place, but look at the stuff which isn't a placeholder. Look at that. Fantastically impressive statues there, very Egyptian as you might imagine. Now, the theme of this entire zone is undoubtedly Egyptian. Awful lot of stuff like that. But funnily enough, there's also some Arabian in there as well, in the form of the two skywall areas. You can see minarets and various Arabian Nights-style architecture and aesthetic, but we'll show you that later in the video. In the meantime, let's stick firmly to the sand dunes and the obelisks of Uldum itself. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, Uldum was a Titan research outpost, similar to Ulduar and Oldham Dam. We're approaching right now one of the 5-man instances, the Halls of Origination. However, there is an invisible wall in here. We can get in a little bit, but you're not going to see any instance content. This is not out yet. Oddly enough, this also looks very different to a screenshot they released only about a month or so ago of the entrance to the Halls of Origination. The pyramid doesn't appear to be active. It has the sort of power veins on the outside of it, but they're not lit up. So I'd imagine there is perhaps either a phase or some kind of event involved in maybe reactivating this. If that's the case, then that's very cool indeed. You'll note the distinctive Titan motifs all over the walls that you'll see in places like the Vault of Archivon as well as Ulduar, mixed in with this Tolvir architecture, as they're calling them. The Tolvir were a race of sentient cat people. I'm also happy to say that I did manage to find a few of them, and you will get to have a first look at those a little bit later on in this video. So, as I mentioned last time, the Tolvir existed in two areas. There was a camp in Northrend, which ended up getting taken over by the Nerubians, and they were then morphed into the Obsidian Destroyers. The Tolvir were actually created to maintain Titan lore repositories and Titan machinery surrounding the cities of Ulduar and Uldum. They haven't been seen for a very long time, except in the form of the Obsidian Destroyers, which you'll have seen most prominently in the Anchorage instance. It shouldn't also surprise you that, considering its proximity to Uldum, it's actually just one zone across, that those constructs, those Tolvir Obsidian Destroyer entities were also to be found in there, most likely captured and enslaved by the Karaji. Very nice looking stuff in this zone. One of the most aesthetically pleasing zones I've ever seen. A lot of detail here, but bear in mind this is all unfinished, and of course as a result of that it's very empty. There will be some unfinished texture work, so beta is beta, nothing is complete, and I don't believe I have to keep explaining that to people, but hey, there you go. This is the internet. We're approaching one of several underground constructs. In the meantime, we'll have a look, and yes, there are sand pygmies. We'd want to reuse those models from the Goblin Zone, no doubt. Enter here. It's difficult to talk an awful lot about this because this is very much unknown. There's not a lot of lore surrounding it. This is obviously some kind of Titan mechanism, and it's surrounded by these odd-looking fellows. You'll see one of those later in the video. There's some very Fifth Element style stuff going on here. Shouldn't really surprise anybody. Nice looking models, very good texture work across the board here. Certainly one of the most impressive zones I've seen thus far. Scarab motifs on the wall. They're still going into that ancient Egyptian thing. Obviously a lot of this video is going to be speculation, and there may just be parts where I don't bother commentating simply because it's sightseeing and I don't really know any more than you do about this. The research that I've done in this is fairly lacking simply because there isn't anything out about it. Even the official Blizzard article about, say, the Halls of Origination reveals very little. What we can say, of course, is that this zone is going to reveal quite a bit, perhaps about the origins of all life on Azeroth, as well as ancient Titan technology. There's supposed to be a Titan superweapon buried somewhere here, but I must attest I didn't manage to find it. They really spare no expense when it comes to the height of these things. Very impressive. Now, that you'll see, that's up close, the stone statue of a Tolvir. They are winged, and you will recognize the shape of the wings, of course, from the Obsidian Destroyers. So, I just want one more look at this. This is fantastic. That's just exciting, it really is. I want to know what's going on here. I'm genuinely interested in the story of this zone. So this area is called the Chamber of the Stars. What you might notice, somebody's down there. Who is this? Oh, look, it's Harrison Jones. We should have seen that coming a mile away, and his solution to everything is to pack it with explosives, trying to blow his way in there. He's got a quest, but we can't gain it yet. We're not high enough level. One of the few active quest givers in this entire zone at this point in time. Once again, for those with memories like Goldfish, this is an unfinished zone. It is not open yet. Fly and have a look at some of the more beautiful areas. Nice lush desert oasis there. They call it the Gateway to Eternity. I'm not entirely sure why. You'll note the map is incomplete at this point in time. It doesn't show the different areas, but we can discover them. Nice indeed. They might want to polish up the waterfall effects just a little bit before launch. That'll be nice. It doesn't really match up to the splendor of the new water animations as well as the texture. Now, you'll have seen that from the outside video. There you can see it from the inside. Now, this is odd coming up right here. I'm not entirely sure of the purpose, but this is guarded. As to what it's guarded by, I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. Let's approach it and see what's going on. A couple of scorpids hanging around. But what is that off to the right there? That, by the looks of it, would be a very smug-looking camel. That is not quite ready yet. That's actually a mounted desert warrior, and as it turns out, all it's doing right now is showing the camel. There's supposed to be something on the top of that. There is an achievement for getting a camel mount, so if anyone would like to ride a camel, that looks like that's going to be a possibility within Cataclysm. Now, this next area has some interesting stuff. It's a half-buried Tolvir pyramid, by the looks of it. I'll fly over and see the heaps of sand dunes that have encompassed a lot of the foundations of this particular area. But that's not what should intrigue you the most, because, hey, what is this? Oh, yes. That is a buried Tolvir. Can we get him out? He's not looking all that happy, is he? Oh, look, there we go. And that is a live Tolvir. Made of stone, as you can quite clearly see, a little bit Sphinxian. It's not the only one in this zone by any stretch of the imagination. Patience is a virtue. You'll get to see some more a little later. Now, what else can we find? Well, there's something even more odd at the front of this particular pyramid. As we fly around here, note what appears to be new sand blowing effects that I certainly haven't seen before. Nasty elementals. Of course, all our gear is broken from the last exploration attempt, so I don't really want to muck with these guys. They're quite high level. Colossus of the Moon appears to be buried. Let's see if we can get him out. Assuming he doesn't bug out while we attempt to do so. Whoa, okay. He's not happy. Not one bit. Ungrateful bastard. Yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near that. I think we're just going to fly off elsewhere. You can just chill out and do whatever you want. People these days, I swear. Should have just left him buried. Now, there are signs of population around here, but they don't appear to be native Tolvir. These kind of camps and defenses look like they may be Explorers League. It would make sense, but there are no Explorers League fellows around here. I can only assume that that's not been populated as of yet, and that's the reason. Let's have a look-see. I've also seen a few seconds ago what appears to be an advanced form of irrigation system. There's certainly no primitive around here by any stretch of the imagination. Well, this is a nice looking area. What else is there to really say about it? You've got the large painted hieroglyphics there on the walls, which is oddly mixed with a futuristic sort of texture that you can note there. Again, I like the mix of the Egyptian with the Titan, but hey, looks like we can go a little further down. Excellent, look at that. There's some kind of sliding puzzle. I'm not really sure what's going on there. You can't click it. Once again, there's hieroglyphics on either side and strange glowy box things. They're big about their tranquil water around here, aren't they? It's like some kind of pleasure spa. Ancient Titan pleasure spas, I wonder. This is very odd indeed. What is that? I wonder if that's actually water or an actual projection, because that looks quite similar to the Maelstrom. I wonder. Excellent stuff. And look, one of these again. This is not the first that we've seen, and there are more than a couple of these in there, pointing down at that Maelstrom-like effect. I'll let you judge for yourselves on this one, really, because there is no lore that I can find that surrounds this area of any description. Perhaps something very obscure like one of the novels, or maybe the RPG books might have something about it. Let's get out of here and have a look at some other stuff. Some of you will be chomping at the bit for the skywall, don't worry, it is coming. Patience, patience. This is quite a long one. I just wanted to try and be as detailed as possible, even if it wasn't in terms of the commentary. More a case of looking around to see what's available. This is a fairly substantial zone. It's only about the size of Hyjal. On top of this temple, there is another area. Interesting looking fortification by the looks of it. High walls, battlements. Yet more of these encampments dotted around. Again, no motifs, but one has to assume Explorers League. Considering that Bran Bronzebeard has been to Uldum as well as Ulduar, I would strongly suggest that he's going to be hanging around here as well. Can't be found as of yet, though. It's not in the zone. A lot of things aren't. Very windswept, very lonely around here at the moment, but I have a feeling that once this zone becomes open to the public, it's going to be anything but. Not just in terms of players in here, but in terms of mobs and what's going on. They can't really fail to make a zone like this interesting. It's already interesting, and there's barely anything in it yet. There's a very small house. Can't imagine. The funny thing about this is that I have to wonder who's going to be living here, because this looks well maintained. It certainly doesn't look derelict. And apparently we seem to have found the Ark of the Covenant. And you can click on it, or you're supposed to be able to click on it. I don't know what its purpose is. You can actually run inside it, but it is impossible to click on it at the moment. It just keeps saying too far away. I have no idea what the purpose of that is. Now, you will note on the map there are a number of cloud formations. Some of those represent areas of the sky wall. I found 2 areas specifically. And since there is a 5-man as well as a raid dungeon available in this zone, each of those is home to one of the 2. You can see over there, that's Anchorage from an angle that you rarely get to see it from. Now, there aren't exactly all that many similarities in terms of the way that they're constructed. But there's obviously some cross-pollination, not only of ideas, but of creatures. We saw those pink scorpids that are very similar to some of the things that you find in Anchorage, and of course the Tolvir with the obsidian destroyers. Seems that whatever was cloaking Uldum for all of this time didn't do a particularly good job when the Karaji Wars were occurring. Off in the distance there, you'll see a flotilla of Bloodsail Buccaneer ships, but I'd like to also draw your attention to a brand new campfire, perhaps the most important feature of Cataclysm right here. Yes, indeed. Resub right now for new campfire effect. Seems to be some kind of digging operation going on here. Large... Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? That's quite similar to the facial texture we saw on that Colossus that we dug out of the sand earlier that wasn't all that happy to see us. Ramshackle fortifications around here, and quite a few Bloodsail pirate ships. They're not populated. I'm actually being a little bit careful to fly over this, considering how likely it is for you to get dismounted. I'm making our way to the south of this zone now. We've got another temple area. They had a lot of temples, no doubt about that. Big into their statues, big into their obelisks. Well, here's something intriguing. That giant mountain has a door. And that, if I remember correctly, is the sign for the Explorers League. This may possibly be the entrance to the lost city of the Tolvir. It's a very, very large underground complex by the looks of it, built into the mountain. There's no real way to tell, there's no indication one way or the other. But I couldn't find an instance portal or a meeting stone for that particular zone. Whatever the case, the lost city of Tolvir is supposed to be around an 84 to 85 5-man. I would not be surprised at all to see Bran Bronzebeard at the front door there. However, we can make our way inside some of this. Once again, something very odd here, and the third instance of seeing this particular device. Well, this one looks, looks a little different, a little bit more powerful and advanced. What it is, it's a giant drill. As to what it's drilling for, I really don't know. I must admit I was a little hesitant to going down here, because there are numerous areas that are called kill zones, that if you fly into them, you will simply die straight away. But I'm going to try and fly down as far as possible. Very deep boring hole here. Now, that texture to me indicates a kill zone. I don't want to go anywhere near that. I can't imagine what its purpose is, and indeed why it's still active. It's intriguing. That really covers the theme of the entire zone. Intriguing. Everything about it is. Also note here, there is another entrance in. It's a strange Oculus kind of setup. That is odd, isn't it? It's Like some kind of docking hatch. It's kind of a shame I didn't pan up slightly, because you'll have noticed that with the borehole in the back, it did look an awful lot like an eye. Oh, the sounds of civilization by the looks of it. That's the Oldham Dam. And various unfamiliar naval designs right here. And what we will see is our first live and civilized and unburied in sand Tolvir. This is a area called Ramkehen, and that is the king of Ramkehen. They're all wearing some very cool ornamental masks. No quests available here, but it looks like we're going to be able to ally with these guys against Deathwing. I can't really imagine them wanting to ally with him, considering the whole enslavement and horrible that they've faced. A little bit of Anubis going on there by the looks of it. They're big into their awnings, aren't they? I suppose you'd need to be in an area like this, keeps the sun off. You'll also notice there is a motif that I will show you when I get the chance. A few ships that seem to have it. Now, obviously, I'd expect this area to be much more populated when the zone comes out. And their primary crop, red things. There you go, see? That unfamiliar insignia there, perhaps the sign of the Tolvir. It would make sense when you think about it. And you noticed another one of those earlier, actually. Very Tauran-style windmills. Very similar to the ones that you see in Mulgore. That is interesting. I wonder if that's a placeholder, or maybe there's some kind of common ancestry there, although I can't really imagine how. It does seem very odd, doesn't it? Now, some of you, I imagine, would like to see the skywall. I think we can make that happen. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Firstly, however, we have to find it. Not all of these cloud formations house elements of the skywall. As far as I could tell, there are two parts of it, but the map indicates there's a third. That doesn't appear to be in yet. We saw it just off in the distance there, so let's go and have a look. Again, that contrast in architecture there, but first, what the hell is that? You may think that I'm being drawn away like some kind of magpie towards sparkly objects, and I suppose in a way that I am. This is the first time I've ever seen it too. I'm really curious as to what's going on. Now, this area did mention some kind of Titan super weapon, but I don't think this is it. That looks a bit gnomish to me, honestly. I don't know what it is. It looks like a submarine, but it also looks like some kind of very angry narwhal. Maybe a bit of sandcrawler going on there as well. What is it, and what is it for? And hell, does it even do anything? How bizarre. Okay, stop looking at the shiny thing. Let's go see if we can find the skywall. Now, there's a blatant contrast in architecture, and there's a reason for that. These guys are not the Tolvir. These are actually air elementals and Jinn. More specifically, we're talking about Mr. Alakir. Now, if you don't know who Alakir is, he's one of the 4 elemental lords. They're the lieutenants of the old gods. Ragnaros was one of them. You've got Neptulon the Tidehunter as another, although by the sounds of it, he's a lot more friendly now. You also had Therazane, the Stone Mother, and Alakir is supposedly the weakest of the 4. Concept art shows that he is fairly similar in the way that he looks to Ragnaros, only he's an air version. And some of you might wonder, well, wasn't Thundarin one of the elemental lords? Well, no, he wasn't. He's actually one of the children of Alakir, supposedly. That is mostly speculation at this point. Now, you'll have seen a dungeon portal here. That's to the Vortex Pinnacle. This is one of the 2 areas of the skywall that's currently available to have a look at. The other one is a little further away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip you forward so that we can find it. First, yes, just have another long look at that nice Arabian architecture there. Very cool. Also notice what looks to be another Tolvia settlement down there. Looks to be mostly agricultural. Okay, let's go and have a look at the other part of the skywall, shall we? There's nothing really in the area that I showed you there. It's very similar to the other settlement, and there are no Tolvia actually in it. Funnily enough, it's actually populated by level 34 crab things. You know those crawlers you saw around? You know what I'm talking about. I don't know why they're there, and as I say, that is very unfinished. Okay, this is the more serious part of the skywall. There are 4 towers instead of 3. That makes it 33% more serious. And that is the portal to what looks to be the Throne of the Four Winds. That's the raid dungeon. This is very high up, literally on the limit that you're flying Mount Kimmeridge. I am very impressed by the texture work for the clouds, though. Absolutely fantastic stuff. The way that they just dissolve into it like that is unbelievable. Very cool. Not much of a wall, though, really, is it? It's just a bunch of floating towers. I'm not convinced as to the ability to keep anyone out of that. Stop complaining. Now, one final thing. Some of you saw in the previous video a bunch of flying things. You're wondering what they were? I can show you. Rather large wingspan buzzards. What a zone. If that's unfinished, I can't wait to see what it's like when it's complete. My name's been Totalbiscuit, and this has been a sneak peek at Uldum. I'll see you next time.